Hi friends, hi, how's it going? How are you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my next installment, my palette roulette series, in which I come to you, talk to you about a palette that I chose to utilize in my collection for the last week. I talk to you about the experiences with the palette, show you some photos of the palette, looks that I was able to create with the palette, and we do some live swatches, and then we pull another palette and we do it all over again. Here lately I've been doing it every couple of weeks because I've been pulling like 2 palettes at a time. Today we will be going over these 2 palettes, the Persona Identity 2 and the Flower Beauty Desert Lights palette, and if that sounds something like you're interested in, I hope that you'll want to keep watching. Forgot to turn on my audio, super sorry about that. It's on now. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta. I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here on my platform. But I also just kind of really like to talk about makeup. I choose you Pikachu. We talk about makeup a lot here. I'm a very chatty channel, and I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. If it does, I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go, and I think I'm pretty much a kick in the pants to hang out with. I think that you'll realize that. And like I said, please subscribe. With that said, let's roll into this palette roulette palette review of these 2 guys here. I cannot wait to talk to you about them. All right, hello, hi. Yes, I am in the same clothes that you saw me in my last video. And the biggest reason why, you guys, is because I realized yesterday, as I was getting my hair done, that I had no videos for the week before Christmas and thereafter. So I am kind of in a panic, and I am recording all 3 videos hopefully today so that I can get them uploaded, because ain't nobody got time to do it next week. I have a very busy work week planned, and then there's Christmas. So there's that. Typically this time of year I'm doing Vlogmas, and also typically I have about 3 weeks worth of content saved on my computer to edit and move forward with. And you know, hey, I've been down in the dumps a lot lately, and I kind of just didn't feel like recording anything. So I haven't been, and now I am in a panic. So that's where we're at. This week, we will be going over these 2 palettes, the Persona Identity 2 palette and the Desert Jungle Lights palette. Both of these have rave reviews out here in the beauty community, and I can't wait to talk to you about mine. But first, let me know if you've used these palettes down in the comments section. I would love to hear from you if you have, because I am a little bit torn, honestly, on one specifically, and that is this one here. So this is the first one that I'm going to go over with you today. This is the Persona Identity 2 palette. This is a $42 palette, and it has 0.48 ounces of product in it, or 0.04 ounces per pan. It is hugely recommended. The Persona brand in a nutshell is hugely recommended by Kelly Gooch, who is a respected YouTuber out here, somebody that I love to watch, and somebody that I will continue watching even if I don't feel the same way about this palette as she does, or this brand. I don't know that I can say brand, because this is the only thing that I've tried from this brand, but this is what the palette looks like. I love the packaging of it. It is a nice plastic packaging, which is fantastic because it's really good for travel. It does have a clasp closure. It doesn't take much work to get it open. It does have a little bit of a like pinkiness to it, even though maybe it's not coming across necessarily on camera. It says Persona right here. That is flat to the package. It's not raised or anything like that. And then over here it says Identity 2. This is what the back of the packaging looks like, just nothing special. It's just got, you know, the label on it. I believe it says 12 months shelf life because, you know, I'm not wearing my glasses so I can't see, and the address of the company, and that's it. When you open it up, it does have a really nice mirror, and it does stand up on its own, so you can use it as like a vanity mirror if you need to use it as a vanity mirror. This is what the color story looks like. On Ulta, it has a 4.1 star rating with 20 reviews. On Google, it has a 4.4 star rating with 36 reviews. And on Persona, it has a 4.8 star rating with 56 reviews. It has 12 shades, 2 finishes, 5 mattes, and 7 shimmers are what you're going to find in this palette. I think I would probably rank it around that 4-star rating. I don't think it's necessarily horrible, but I also don't think it's awesome. And we'll go into the reasons why throughout this process. But this is the second palette for the brand, and the second palette following the Persona Identity palette, which is more of a neutral palette. And I think that that is the one that Kelly Gooch talks about the most, I do believe. It's a very neutral palette. It wasn't the one that caught my eye. I did want to try Persona because of the things that I've heard about the brand, and this one was more up my alley, right? Because it's got the jewel tones, it's, you know, a little more poppy. It was created to be the re-envisioned Persona Identity palette using the bold, vivid shades, as I just spoke about, and providing everyday glam with those dramatic pops of color and sultry vibes. All the shades in this palette are super smooth and blendable. I think that they're really easy to use, and that was a plus for me, and I think it would be a plus for anyone new to the makeup scene. So if like somebody came up to me and was like, hey, do you know of a palette that'd be really good for me to use as a newcomer to makeup, I wouldn't hesitate to state that Persona would be a formula of choice for ease of use. I think that they were really easy to use. The shadows in here, though, are very powdery, and they did fall out quite a bit. I would say maybe the mattes more so than the shimmers, which is odd. Typically, shimmers fall out a lot more than mattes do. These mattes are very, very powdery. I think that you can see the remnants of the leftover powder in this brown that I did use for my eye look today. It's still sitting in the pan. Now, granted, it's not falling out everywhere, but it does fall out on application. It is very powdery in the component. The shimmers in here are very pretty, and I think almost dual chromatic to some extent. There's a little bit of shiftiness in each one of the shimmers, and they have kind of an iridescent feel. I would say this blue one mostly has a little bit of like a silvery, like almost hollow feel to it, just tapped into the center of the lid. It looks immaculate and beautiful. I am wearing the green and the yellow today, and I think that the green has a lot of that gold base in it, which makes it look really good with the yellow shimmer in here. There weren't very many of them that I didn't feel like had a nice little shiftiness to them, which gave me more than I was expecting from the shimmers in this palette. But these performed more like satins than they did like shimmers, meaning that they blended really easily into the crease and I could blend them out. I even used them as like outer corner into the crease shades, specifically this one a couple of times. They're just not super impactful on an eye look, and I think that you could see that in my eye look today. If you didn't know any better, and if I didn't know any better, I almost might think these are mattes on my lid. They just have a little bit of sheeniness to them, not much. I would say that they're, because they look like could almost be mattes, or because they are a little more satiny than they are shimmery, I do think that they don't exacerbate texture. I think that they're kind of skin smoothing, to be honest, and I liked that about these. They didn't like bunch up in the inner corners of my eyes like a lot of shimmers do, because I have, you know, maybe crepey eyelids on the inner corner, and that's bothersome to some extent for makeup application for me. I think that the shimmers in this palette performed best on a dry eye. They were emollient enough and creamy enough that they stuck without having to have like a primer underneath them. What this did was create a little bit of problems, a little bit of opportunity with creating an eye look. I think that the mattes perform better with a primer. So I needed to put a primer on my eye to get the mattes on my eye, and then I needed to wipe the primer off in order to get the shimmers to stick better to my eyes and last longer on my eyes, to be able to be compensatory to how long the mattes were landing and laying and lasting on my eyes. I think that the longevity of the products overall in this palette really lacked. I think that I got a good 6-hour wear time out of them before they started creasing and fading and all the things. And you know, if you know, like, I am somebody who puts my makeup on very early in the morning. I need it to last very late into the night because I drive, I go visit a store, I drive some more, I go visit a store. Like, I have probably a 10 to 12 hour work day in my life almost on a daily, so between drive time and actually visiting stores. So I need my makeup to last. 6 hours just didn't do it for me. And I would notice that towards the end of that 6-hour time frame, like in the crease area, there was like voiding happening in the crease area. Now, they were super easy to fix. I would just, you know, pat my eye in that crease area and it would move the makeup back into that spot and it looked fine. But it was kind of a pain in the ass to have to check my eye look before I walked into a store to make sure that it wasn't mobile on my lids, that it hadn't disappeared. That was frustrating for me. And putting a primer on underneath led to workability issues. So I just would rather deal with the problems of them like voiding in my crease without the primer than not working for me at all with the primer. In addition to that, I feel like a lot of these shimmers are very black based, and to the extent that with this eye look today, this green is black based. So I put black on the outer corner and around it, and then I buffed like the brown over the top of the black so that it wasn't like hugely black eye look. But as the shimmers wear away, they're just very like almost dingy gray on your eye, and it's not attractive. It's not flattering at all, and I don't really love that they're mostly black based. This one is not black based, and this one is quasi not black based, but for the most part all the shimmers in this palette are black based. And then you have the mattes here, and you only get 5 mattes in a 12-pan palette, which is neither here nor there. I like a 50-50 split. It's only like 60-40. It's not that bad, right? But none of the mattes are really complementary to any of the shimmers in here, except for like this one that's a neutral shimmer, and maybe the green and gold. But like when you get to this pink, the only matte that you can use to offset the pink, the purple, and the blue is this pink here, which is, I think, too warm tone for any of those shades. So I don't know. I'm not wholeheartedly mad at the palette, but I also don't think it's one of the best ones that I've ever tried, in my humble opinion. I think that it could have been better, for sure. And I think maybe their neutral one is better, but I just wasn't impressed. I just wasn't impressed with it. I wish that we had received maybe a couple more mattes instead of all the shimmers. Like, I 100% did not need this shimmer in here. This is like also this shimmer looks pink, but it's very light and not opaque at all. It's very clear almost, if that makes any sense. And I didn't really need it in the palette. I would have preferred maybe a deeper pink or a cooler toned purple in this palette to offset some of these more jewel toned shimmers. I just don't think the mattes flow well with the jewel toned shimmers that are in here, if I'm honest. I didn't necessarily need a black in here. I didn't necessarily also need a brown in here when we have this brown up here. Like, we could have replaced these 2 mattes and this one shimmer with some jewel tone mattes that would have more made this palette complete, in my humble opinion. I didn't love having to use the same mattes to formulate an eye look with the jewel tones in here. In addition to that, the shimmers weren't impactful, and I do like an impactful shimmer. So with that said, I was really happy to also have this palette in the mix with the Persona palette, because when those shimmers did me dirty or I wasn't as impressed with how impactful they were on the lid, I could just run my finger in any one of these shadows, pop, pop, pop it on the center of the eyelid, and it did wonders for the eye look. If I'm honest, I use this most often for that reason. There were a couple times that I did put this all over the lid, and I think that doing that, I did myself a disservice, because while these shimmers were very skin smoothing, these shimmers exacerbated a lot of texture, and I think I said that about the Jungle Lights palette as well. These are, however, so pretty. So, so pretty. So this is what the palette looks like. It's just got a clear top to it, and it says Desert Lights on it, and on the back of the palette it does have information about the palette, and it's got, you know, the little color swatches over here telling you what the names of the shades within the palette are. And then it also has a shelf life on it, I believe also 12 months. This is what the palette looks like. Obviously no mirror, because it does have a clear top, which is whatever, but this is $19.99 for 6 shadows at the drugstore, or $18 on some sites. On the Ulta Beauty website, it's $19.99. On the Flower Beauty website, it's $18. Go figure. Find where it is the cheapest new. Purchase it that way if you want to. I think for 6 shadows at the drugstore, I want a mirror. This palette has 0.7 ounces of product in it, which means each one of these pans of shimmer is 0.12 ounces of product. And on Ulta Beauty, it does have a 4.6 star rating with 74 reviews. I think it also probably comes in that 4.4, 4.5, 4.6 star realm, simply for the sparkle factor. I mean, it is stunning, sparkly, beautiful. These 6 shimmer shadows are super creamy and emollient, inspired by desert lights and desert tones and the Sahara and, you know, sand and all the things. Beauty, beauty, beauty. These fall out all over your face, which in my humble opinion is not beautiful at the end of the day. It looks awful at the end of the day, because you have got glitter all over your face in spots that you never knew existed, and it is hard to get that glitter out of your pores, off of your skin, off of your lip, whatever. It goes everywhere. I do love it. There is so pretty and impactful, but there's so much fallout with these shimmers, and I have shimmers that are as impactful in my collection that don't fall out all over the place. I think I said that with the Jungle Lights palette as well. They performed well with or without a primer, and I would say gave me a good 10 to 12 hours of wear, but they exacerbated any texture that I had in my eyelids, and they also created so much fallout that I didn't want to use them ever. The easiest, best way that I found to use them was, as I said, putting them on my finger and tapping them into an eye look versus using them on an eye look. And for that purpose, these shadows are going to last through your grandkids' because they're so, so big. Like, I would say we could do with like half this size and 6 little tiny baby pans, because that's the best way to use these palettes, and charge us half the price. But honestly, $19.99 is not a bad price for the size of shadows that these are, but I just don't think that we needed this size of shadow for this purpose, number one. And if I'm spending $20 on a 6 shade eyeshadow palette at the drugstore, I want a mirror. I don't want the packaging to be as cheap as it is. There's no reason for the packaging to be as cheap as it is. I do love that it is got a really strong clasp on it. One thing that I would also say is these are very fragile shades. My Jungle Lights palette came to me shattered. This one also came to me shattered. This shade right here was a shattered shade. That's why there's like a line in this pan, is because I repress the shadow. And, you know, when I repressed the shadow, I had a little bit of lippiness in like whatever I was using. There's still a crack in it. It's very fragile. It's not going to be a good palette to travel with. And therefore, like, I really stressed out taking this on the road with me this week. But let's swatch them so that you can see them all in action. I am going to do the Persona Identity 2 first. I'm going to go across each row and do it that way. I'm going to try and get them all on one hand, and then I'll do the Desert Lights on the other. Okay, first 4 swatches. We have Honest, which is a pearly nude shade. It looks very pink in the pan. It also looks very pink in the swatch, but using it in an eye look, it doesn't actually appear this pink in an eye look. It's got a nice transparent base. It does have a little bit of a yellow shiftiness to it on your eye look, which is weird because it looks pink in the pan and looks pink in a swatch, but I would say it shifts more yellow. Then we have this, which is a matte. This one is the shade Kind. It's a pale nude matte. Then we have Loyal, which is a warm, like camel brown matte. Then we have Independence, which is a gunmetal blue shimmer. It's very cool tone and has kind of a pinkish shift to it, but it is really pretty. It's a very pretty color in the palette, but not one that I would say you can use very often because it is really dark. Because they're very black based, they're very dark eye shadows. Therefore, you're consistently doing like a jewel tone smoky eye because it's super dark on the lid space. If you're not into that, you're not going to love this palette. And we have Passionate. It's categorized as a maroon matte. I would say this is more of a like dusty peachy pink. And I think that you can see that in the swatch too. This is the matte that I use the most in the palette. We had a light brown, a dark brown, a white, a black, and then this one. So this is the one that I wore the most. The next shade we have is this Unique shade, which is a rich gold shimmer. Unique is its name, not that it's unique. It is a very bold yellow. I would say more of a yellow than a gold. Then we have Driven, which is an emerald green shimmer. Then we have Confident, which is a purple shimmer. Almost has kind of a peachy shift to it. It looked really good with this peachy pinky matte. Last row in the Persona Identity 2 palette, we have this one here, which is called Empowered. It's a like deep cranberry-esque shimmer, and I think that you can see what I was talking about earlier when I said the mattes really don't go with the shimmers. This shimmer here and this would be the matte that you would think goes well with it, but this is definitely cool toned and this is definitely warm and peachy, and they just didn't go super great together, which I wanted to partner them together often. Then we have this one here, which is called Resilient. It's a bronze brown shimmer with a golden shift. This was actually my favorite shimmer in the palette. This is such a beautiful shimmer. Not impactful, but beautiful. Then we have the brown matte that is called Brave, and it is, I don't know, I think it's more like cool tone, but it is very chocolate, so warm tone. And then we have this one here, which is called Limitless, and it is black, and that is a black. For the flower palette, I am going to just do the swatches on my wrist area here. So first and foremost, we have this one here, which is called Mirage. It is a pink champagne, and it is stunning. Can you guys see that? Holy cow. Then we have this one here, which is called Soul, and it is a gold shimmer, and I do believe this is much more gold than like bronzy gold or like almost sandy gold. Then we have Horizon, which is categorized as a bronze, and I would say it's more of like a rosy bronze. Then we have Red Rocks, which is kind of a rosy copper. Then we have Sahara. This is categorized as a rose gold, and it is kind of a pink to a gold shift. I do think that this shows up very pinky in an eye look, and I think all of them have a little bit of a rosy shift to them, honestly, but this one is the most pink. I loved this with this matte right here, and then this in the outer corner and the outer corner in the crease. Such a beautiful eye look. I think I have a picture of that. Okay, last but not least is this one here, which is called Terra, and it is a deep brown. This one I would say is more satiny than it is shimmery. Had probably the least amount of fallout from that one than I did from the others. These are all of the shades. I do think that these two palettes partnered together really well. I was really happy to have the Desert Lights in my life during this week because the shimmers in this palette were just so much more impactful than the shimmers in this palette. I think that you guys can see that. I also really did enjoy that the shimmers in the Persona palette worked well in the crease because I could use them as quasi mattes with some of these shimmers as well. But what I didn't love, honestly, about this last couple weeks was any of the eye looks that I did. I had very few eye looks that I really, really loved over the last couple weeks. This eye look is no different. Like, they just didn't give me all of the warm and fuzzies and all of the beauty. I mean, typically when I do my eye makeup, I'm like, oh, that is so pretty. That is so pretty. I didn't find myself wanting to pull from this palette ever. Like, I went an entire 7 days straight without wearing makeup because I just didn't want to pull for it. So over the last, several months, as we're doing these palette roulettes and I'm taking 2 weeks to review 2 palettes and you're getting like 8 eye looks, I think this time you maybe got a whopping 5 total because I wore my makeup, I think probably 7 times out of the last 14 days because I just didn't want to pull for it. Not saying it's the worst palette on the planet. I've reviewed more palettes than this one that I think are worse. What I am saying is that I by no means am happy with this purchase, and I by no means would ever tell somebody that this is a fantastic formula. I kind of am sitting in this place where it's not a bad formula. It's really not. I love that the shimmers don't exacerbate texture. I love that the shimmers kind of perform more like satins to some extent. I love that they've got like this skin smoothing property to them, but I hate the color story in here, and I hate that we have like some warmer tone mattes with jewel tone shimmers that just don't go together, in my humble opinion. I wasn't super stoked about this palette. This one, I kind of knew going in that this was going to fall out all over my face. It was going to be better tapped in instead of like painted on, right? Because I have already reviewed Jungle Lights and I feel the same way about Jungle Lights. I still will stand by the fact that I think that this is way overpriced. I think that we could get half of this palette, these same 6 shades, half of this size, and be perfectly fine with that amount of product and a lesser price point. But I love those shimmers, but just wish they were a little bit more user-friendly is where I'm going with that. With that said, I won't be decluttering either one of these at this moment. I think I have these same shades in formulas that I love to use and love to work with, and I think that this would be a good palette for somebody who wants to dabble in color, who is maybe more mature eyes, who maybe is new, because I do think that this is a really nice formula for a beginner, as long as they understand and don't get frustrated by the fallout that's going to occur on their face from the mattes. So, and this one is just too impactful. I love it. I love the shimmer, the beauty that it brings to the eye look. So I'm not going to declutter either one of them right now, but this wasn't my favorite last couple weeks, to be honest. thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you are having a blessed December. I hope that whatever holiday you're celebrating right now, that you're having a happy holiday season. And I hope that if you don't celebrate the holidays, you're having a very happy December nonetheless. I thank you guys so much for coming to my channel. I would love having you as part of my YouTube fam. With that said, I hope that you and yours are healthy, that you're well, that you're staying safe out there, and that you are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, friends, bye.